The President Nana Akufo-Addo has broken the ground for the construction of the first Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics STEM Academy in Accra, christened the Accra Academy. The 32 million cedi academy is expected to be completed within 24 months.
Technology, Engineering and Mathematics Academy is an initiative by the Ministry of Education to inculcate in the Ghanaian child the habit of using science to solve problems. To give the initiative a national representation, the academy will be built across the country to shift Ghana's education structure from reading to a science and technology-oriented program. The STEM Academy will admit pupils from kindergarten to SHS level, where they will learn everything science, technology, engineering and mathematics, including robotics, software development, internet, artificial intelligence and ethical hacking, among others. The Minister for Education, Dr. Yawase Educhum, said the STEM Academy is a renaissance of education in Ghana.
We have begun the education transformation agenda. I call it the renaissance of education in Africa. We are beginning what will be the dawn of a new time, a new era in education. The vision of the president is that if we don't transform education, education cannot play its rightful role in transforming the economy.
The President, Nana Akufo-Addo, said the focus of the Science and Technology SHS under construction in the country is to start the transformation of education in Ghana.
In addition, the Accra STEM Academy will be a place where learners in junior high school will be provided with the options of learning basic engineering, manufacturing, and global studies to help them make informed decisions on their preferred programs of choice at senior high school level.
He said the target is to change the country's education structure from humanities-dominated to the science, technology, engineering and mathematics.
The time has come for us to reorient our educational system to equip students with the right technological skills needed to succeed in the 21st century. In accordance with government's education strategic plan, targeted increasing our science to humanities ratio from the current one of 40 to 60 to the desired 60 to 40 in favor of science, government is repositioning our educational system anchored on STEM education.
The 32 million STEM Academy, a 4-story building with 14 laboratories, 28 classrooms, library, 26 washrooms and a sick bay, is expected to accommodate 2,000 students. 20 similar facilities will be built across the country.
In some of the day's other stories, the single spine salary structure is expected a review in the coming months. The over a decade-old salary structure sought to regulate the payment of public service workers' salaries and also guarantee a better public sector pay. The Wages and Salaries Commission says plans are underway to ensure that the policy goes through an overhaul, especially those under Article 190 of the Constitution. This comes on the back of concerns raised by some public sector employees and experts over the single spine salary program since its inception. Now, Head of Public Affairs at the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, Mr. El Ankra, joins us via Zoom with some more details on the proposed reform and how it's going to help public sector employees. So we go over to El Ankra. Thank you so much, sir, for your time this afternoon. Let's start with one of the most important issues since the introduction of the single spine salary structure. We've seen several agitations by labor unions, and I was wondering what may have undermined the full implementation of the pay policy since its introduction. El, if you can kindly unmute for me. We seem to have lost him on the line, but Earl is going to help us appreciate some of the many concerns that public sector workers have been raising since the inception of the single pay policy. Of course, it was introduced to address issues of inequality in the pay system, but that seemed not to have been achieved because a lot of people are having issues, and we've seen the Labour Front also pushing hard on government to address some of these concerns, which still trying to raise Earl Ankra from the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission to help us on this issue. But we'll look at one of the stories that has also made headlines, at least in the last 2 years, and that is COVID-19. Well, we seem to have Earl back on the line. Earl, if you can hear me, I was asking what may have undermined the full implementation of the single spine policy. More than a decade ago, it seemed to not have addressed the many concerns that we thought the pay policy will address.
Is it possible for you to repeat the question for me?
I was asking, I said, since the introduction of the single spine pay policy, you still can't hear me? I was asking, since the introduction of the single pay policy, we've seen a lot of agitations from the labor unions, and I was wondering what may have been causing this since the policy was introduced to address inequality in the pay scheme.
Okay, what I hear is since the introduction of the single spine policy, you think there's been a lot of agitations, and you want to find out if anything is being done to contain it.
Sure.
If I got it right. Okay, thank you. You're right, the single spine has been in existence, so it's been in implementation for about 10 years now. And it went through different phases. The first phase was the migration. You know, before the single spine, there were over 110 different salary structures. The objective of the single spine is to get all public service institutions that draw their salaries from the consolidated fund onto one salary structure. Then, so we now have one single spine salary structure. But the objective is to clear out the inequities in the system. So, for example, you had a situation where there are two secretaries working for two different institutions. One may be earning 5 cedis at the end of the day. Another may be earning 10 cedis. Just an example. So the single spine came in to bridge the gap, so to speak, as in go through a job evaluation to find out what specifically goes into the work of a secretary, and then we determine where to place it on the structure, and then from then on you will know what salary is appropriate. So if it happens that the actual salary for a secretary is supposed to be 7 cedis, the one who was earning 5 cedis will be brought up to 7. But for the one who was earning 10 cedis, you don't cut their salary because the policy frowns on making someone worse off. But you will maintain that person on the 10 cedis, and so the one who is now at 7 cedis catches up with them. So that is a way by which the policy try to handle the inequities. Now, there are allowances that come with the policy. So most of the agitations we are talking about are not necessarily about the base pay of the single spine, because those inequities were handled by that. But when it comes to allowances, mostly all groups and organizations want to grab in more. There are category 1 allowances that have to do with the work that have been consolidated. And then there are categories 2 and 3 allowances that cut across every public service institution on the single spine. And then there are special allowances, non-core allowances that are peculiar to certain institutions. And that is where sometimes the issues come up from. But when you look at it in general, like you wake up in the morning and there are agitations from the left, agitations from the right, it makes you question the credibility of the policy. But then when you pull back and you take the issues one after the other, you realize that the problem is not with the policy. The problem is with certain groups of workers that are demanding certain things that they may not entirely be entitled to. And that's where the issues are. But we are quite able to control the situation.
Maybe from where you sit, you may think that as far as the base salary issue has been resolved, the issue of allowances that some labor unions have been demanding for it to be addressed may not be that important, but it's part of the scheme. So how will the impending reforms or review of the policy that your agency is going to address all these concerns?
Well, the talk of the review has been going on for quite a while. The consultant that put the policy together recommended that at least even after every 5 years, there's supposed to be a review. Since the policy started, there have been consultation moments. Though in 2013, there was a national forum for the sustainability of the single spine pay policy, which brought around all the key social partners, organized labor, government, civil society, the media, academia, to look at the policy thoroughly and come up with ways of addressing some of the challenges. Another one was held in 2015. And then in 2017, a team was put together to look at public service pay policy in itself. So the review is more or less like you having your vehicle and getting to maintain it periodically, and you having your house and getting to do some maintenance work around the house periodically. So it is in order that we do such reviews. It's not because there's a problem intrinsically with the policy itself, but there is a human institution. You realize that technology is taking over the workplace. You realize that following COVID-19, the workspace has even changed. So when you get to review the policy, you are able to address some of these issues, which go into the determination of the base salary, after which the allowances and others come around.
10 years after the implementation of the pay policy, will you say or would you confirm to GBC News that every single public sector employee has been enrolled on the scheme?
Yeah, there was a target that was set for the commission. I think to the most part, more than 99% of those who were supposed to be on the single spine have gotten on. There are some institutions who are quoting their enabling acts, which claim that their salaries are supposed to be determined by their councils and boards. But then these are discussions that are going on, and the number that remains is very insignificant.
Finally, what is the Commission doing to link productivity and remuneration? Is part of the wisdom that the framers of this policy sought to achieve?
Good question. It is supposed to be the next phase of the single spine pay policy. You know, in the workspace, most of the organizations do performance appraisals. Of course, from the beginning of the year, you set targets with your employees. In the middle of the year, you do a review of the targets and what has been accomplished vis-a-vis the resources available. And then at the end of the year,
we seem to be having a challenge with the network. Technology seems not to be our friend this afternoon, but that was El Ankra. He's the head of public affairs at the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission and has been helping us to appreciate some of the issues. El, back with us? No. Let's move on to our next story, where we'll come back for him to answer our very last question. But the Ministry of Health has begun the No Vaccination Card, No Entry initiative to test the possibility of a mandatory vaccination. However, testing the QR codes on the vaccination card has become a major challenge. The Minister for Health, Mr. Kwekwe Jumanmenu, in an interview with GBC News, said every other challenge associated with the initiative is being addressed to ensure its smooth implementation across the ministries. The initiative was intended to be used as a catalyst to increase the vaccinated population following the declaration of December 2021 as a vaccination month. A report by Sarah Ofori.
Majority of the population remain adamant despite efforts by the Ministry of Health to get them vaccinated and adhere to the safety protocols. Since March last year till date, just about 13% of the population are either fully vaccinated or have at least received one dose. From a cursory look around town, the wanton disregard for the safety protocols was so glaring. Yet, the Minister for Health, Mr. Kweku Ajiman-Menu, says this does not mean the drive to curb COVID-19 is defeated.
We haven't lost the fight. But you see, we're washing hands, we're using sanitizers, we spend so much money. So we haven't lost the battle. But it's like we have to manage our resources also in a different manner. So those who are not using the masks, I don't know what we should tell them again. So they put themselves at risk. And if you want to join that group, you affect us too.
The health minister said the no card, no entry to public spaces initiative, when fully rolled out, would improve the rate of vaccination in the country.
We use Ministry of Health to test the inefficiencies and the effectiveness of that sort of policy or mandatory protocol we want to introduce. So far it's working. The challenges we are facing is testing the QR code we have on the vaccination cards. What device do we use to test and things like that? That is where we are. But going forward, a date will be mentioned, and I think we will introduce these things, not only to offices, but to some other places where people gather, where you meet people, to try to see how we can cut off the spread, the chain.
Meanwhile, the vaccination for other diseases such as cervical cancer among teenagers remain on course, although COVID-19 is said to have overshadowed the process.
Our vaccination program is on course. Last year, when we checked on our statistics, we did a close to about 94% coverage, despite COVID. Initially, it wasn't that good, but later we got parents coming with their children, and things started working so well for us. So all our programs are still running. The only thing is that COVID has taken center stage, which is correct, but we are still running our traditional programs.
He debunked the myths surrounding the vaccines and entreated all those who are hesitating to take the jabs to do so in order not to put the rest of the population at risk. Sarah Furi, GBC News, Accra.
Meanwhile, the health minister says vaccination remains the sure bet to curbing COVID-19 despite the calls by a group of Ghanaian doctors to halt the exercise. They claim the risk factors of vaccination far outweigh the benefits since the vaccines introduced so far have been ineffective at preventing the spread of COVID-19 variants. The concerned doctors claim some countries across the globe with high vaccination rates have had to introduce fourth boosters, yet the infections are unabated.
The fact is that we are getting the disease spreading across majority of those who are not vaccinated. There are some reinfections in vaccinated people, but they are in smaller numbers. So evidence of prevention with a vaccine is real, and it has some good scientific basis. Else, people will not go for boosters. Those who are boosting are those who are vaccinated, and they are trying to rebuild the immune system such that they cannot get reinfected. If you get reinfected even after vaccination, your case situation is not as bad as the unvaccinated person. So the vaccination for now is the sure bet for you preventing and compare ourselves to them there. The way we managed our COVID here was a little bit different, or with God's blessing and the spirits we have in our country. The science evidence we used worked for us. So why do we want to stop it? Though they are dying now, ours hit 15,000. We are coming gradually back. We are now around 13,000. And it's likely we may go as low until something else happens. COVID manifests itself in different varieties or variants. Anytime a new variant comes, it takes the scientists a lot of time to study its nature. When Omicron came, it's like a new thing. And they were also running around to try to see what can happen. In country, our solution was that let us get everybody vaccinated very quickly so that we don't get massive infections. That is how come we launched our vaccine month in December, because we thought that people were going to come from outside and they were bringing this disease to us again. You know, so as for the vaccinations, as I stand here now, me, I'm convinced. All of us who are in the COVID task force, and the scientists, and all those that we have, infectious disease specialists and all that, our conviction now is that we will continue to vaccinate and vaccinate and vaccinate.
We go for a break. We return with more news. Work has been dedicated to improving labor standards in cocoa production with the aim of weeding out child labor. Now, nevertheless, the latest survey on child labor in the cocoa sectors of Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, comparing data from 2009 and also 2014 and 2019, shows minimal reduction in the overall prevalence of children working for longer hours than permitted. Now, this has dominated our discussion in the Ghanaian media space, with the Cocoa Board responding to the issues and outlining measures that they've put in place to ensure that children are not exploited in the cocoa sector. Now, to further this discussion, we've been joined by Fifi Boafo, who is the more or less head of public affairs at the Cocoa Board. Fifi, thank you so much for your time this afternoon, if you can hear me.
Good afternoon, Sani.
Fifi, can you describe to us the picture of the situation vis-a-vis the concerns raised in the media reports that has sparked this discussion?
Well, we do not agree to anyone who conclude that child labor is on the ascendancy in Ghana, because we believe that, considering the work that has been done and what statistics give us, it is not a case that child labor is on the ascendancy in Ghana. However, we believe that what the media has brought out is an indication that the work is not complete. There's still the need for us to engage further, continue the education, the monitoring, and then also to ensure that we partner and collaborate to bring down child labor to the very barest minimum. Yes, we have a challenge, but we will not in any way say that child labor is on the increase. For example, if we look at the recent statistics, 97% of children in cocoa growing areas are in school. How do you then suggest that with such an increase in number of children in schools, the same children are working in cocoa farms? It does not, excuse me to say, make sense. So yes, we agree that per the discussion that has come up, there's some sort of evidence to suggest that the problem has not been eradicated completely, but it is not a case that the situation is getting worse.
So, as Cocoa Board, what are you doing to ensure or to discourage the exploitation of children in the cocoa sector, knowing very well that that even affects the premium value of the commodity?
Well, Cocoa Board has recently employed additional 1,400 extension officers who on a daily basis engage the farmers. And as part of their operations, they are to educate and let the farmers appreciate the fact that kids are not supposed to be involved in cocoa farming. So that is ongoing. We have other radio sensitization programs, training programs through cocoa farmer cooperatives, as well as also incentive packages for farmers within child labor-free zones or farmers who have clearly demonstrated they are not using cocoa kids in cocoa farms. But benefits they are deriving. These are among other many things we are doing. At the moment, Cocoa Board is undertaking what we call cocoa management system, a database system that not just the data of the farmer and the farmer household, but also the geographical location and the activities of the farm. We are able to extrapolate and say that considering the fact that you have a farmer, the wife, and 3 kids, and you have, say, 10-acre farm, you do not have other farmers, there's a likelihood that there will be kids involved in cocoa farming, based on which our officers go there and double check. So various interventions and programs are underway. One of the things we are doing at the moment is to improve on the monitoring system to ensure that we do not have kids in the farm. So we have officers who go around on day-to-day to monitor some of these activities. For example, the recent documentary that came, in a matter of less than a day, Cocoa Board had been able to identify these farmers and where they are, because our interaction with them is at a very high level and we know exactly what they are doing. So when some of these things come up, it comes as a surprise. But hey, that is a crime. And with crime, at every point in time, you shall have someone who is trying to outwit the people seeking to monitor and getting them to do the right thing. So it is a call on us to ensure that we get it corrected.
Thank you so much for your time. Fifi Bofo is the head of corporate affairs at Cocoa Board and has been helping us appreciate what his outfit is doing to address issues of child exploitation in the cocoa sector. All right, from that story, Mali's transitional government led by Colonel Assimi Goita has said in a televised address that it is open to dialogue with ECOWAS. In a crowd on Sunday, 9th January 2022, the Economic Community of West African States imposed various sanctions on Mali for failing to live up to a February 2022 deadline to return the country to constitutional rule. Online to help us examine the impasse between ECOWAS and Mali is Professor Emmanuel Osei Champon, Senior Lecturer, Pentecost University. Thank you so much, Prof, for your time, if you can hear me.
Yes, thank you very much, my brother.
Well, Prof, first of all, what do you make of the move by ECOWAS imposing further sanctions on Mali as it seeks to address the issues of undemocratic rule in the country?
I think it's the right move, and it's long overdue. They even delayed in coming forth with that decision, and so it's a good decision at the wrong time.
And you think that will have any sort of impact on the country's governance or on the military? That's more or less the helm of affairs now in terms of how they run the country.
I doubt, partially yes, but broadly no, because if you look at the history of the political upheavals in the country, immediately after independence around 1963, they've had more than 4 rebellions, and ECOWAS continue to sanction them. But if you look at ECOWAS within the world political framework itself, they cannot bite. And I don't think that it will have any great effect on the country as a whole.
We know countries like Mali are tied with France. The Francophone countries, they have a lot of groupings in the sub-region that sort of have an alliance with France. And France has also supported the move by ECOWAS. You think that's not going to have any sort of effect or impact, or maybe pressurize the military to hand over power?
I'm sorry to say that sometimes some of these former colonial masters go about things diplomatically. In the surface of the issue, they will pretend as if they are with ECOWAS. Behind the scenes, they might be working with military leaders because sometimes they benefit from chances of this nature. Now let's quickly look at, let's quickly run through the sanctions. As you are aware, because of time, I would not like to bore you.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yes. So to sum up, I strongly believe that until we address the root cause of the continuous rebellion in Mali, the problem will continue to exist until the issue is addressed holistically. So one will ask himself, what are the causes of continuous political upheaval in Mali? Quickly, if I run through it, it includes political corruption, constant rebellion by the Tuareg forces, lack of economic opportunities, dominance of the South as compared to the North, which was created by the colonial masters, and lastly, divide and rule tactics. And I might even add the influence of the superpowers for the sake of their own selfish interests.
Well, highlighting the challenges and what you think have been causing the problems, very lastly, how do you think this problem can be resolved? In
broad terms, ECOWAS can address only this issue, and I will even advise that AU and the UN also add to ECOWAS. When they are able to address the three critical questions, and the questions are, why does the conflict persist? What are the challenges toward building a lasting solution? And what has been done holistically to address the issue? Until ECOWAS or any other political institution which is concerned with addressing the issue treats these three questions or handle these three questions, it will be very difficult for the issue to be addressed.
Thank you so much for your time. Professor Emmanuel Osei-Champon is with the Pentecost University and has been helping us to understand the issues in Mali and how it can be resolved. Meanwhile, in some of the day's other stories, the Kanishi District Court trying the case in which the Member of Parliament for Medina, Francis Xavier Soso, is charged for unlawfully blocking a public road and the destruction of public property, could not sit on the case on Wednesday, January 12. This is because the magistrate, Mr. Ohiniba Kufuor, was not available for hearing. Bring that story to you later. A new headquarters for the Police Professional Standards Bureau and a one-stop center for the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Units have been inaugurated for the Ghana Police Service in Accra. Both facilities were completed with funding from donor partners.
Two-story headquarters for the Police Professional Standards Bureau, PPSB, was donated by the Executive Chairman of Tobinco Group of Companies, Mr. Samuel Amu Tobin. The edifice, situated at the Nima Divisional Police Headquarters in Accra, is valued at about 3,982,000 cedis and has offices including a public complaint call center. The Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampari, remarked that the most important factor in the development of every country is security. Hence, the police must be well equipped and supported to deliver its constitutional mandate. He said the new PPSB office will help the police deliver its services in a more professional and ethical manner. The Minister for the Interior, Mr. Ambrose Derry, lauded the Executive Chairman of Tobinco Group of Companies for supporting the Ghana Police Service. In a related development, a one-stop center for the Domestic Violence and Victim Support Unit, DOVSU, of the Ghana Police Service was commissioned in Accra. The center has, among other facilities, 2 courts, a district court and a circuit court. Services expected to be offered at the center are investigation, social welfare service, legal aid, clinical psychology, and counseling, among others. The Inspector General of Police, Dr. George Ekufu-Dampari, was of the view that solving domestic issues needs a preventive approach.
We should have it in mind that we, the police, who are going to work in these facilities, will be more concerned about preventing it from happening And where it does happen, ensuring that we do what it takes to bring the families together than finding a way or probably a shortcut or probably a lazy approach of breaking down the family because we feel that that is something that can easily be done.
The UN Resident Coordinator in Ghana, Mr. Charles Abani, said the inauguration of a new Dovsu Center gives hope to every child and parent that there is help. Representative of the Chief Justice, Justice Jones Doche, highlighted some of the challenges in adjudicating domestic violence and related abuse in the country, adding that the Dovsu One-Stop Center is a step in the right direction.
It is in the same spirit of making justice more accessible to all that the Ghana Police Service has deemed it appropriate to situate two courts, a district court that will sit as a juvenile court and a circuit court that will sit as a child-friendly, gender-based violence court in the Dovsu One-Stop Center to facilitate the successful prosecution of domestic violence or abuse and gender-based violence cases.
The Minister for the Interior, Mr. Ambrose Derry, said the fight against domestic violence needs a holistic approach.
The eradication or reduction of GBV is therefore critical in nation building, and that's why SDG Goal 5 is tied to achieving greater gender equality and empowering all women and girls.
The Ghana Police Service was grateful to the Australian High Commission, the United Nations and UNICEF, churches, NGOs, the executive chairman of Tobinco Group of Companies, and other individuals who supported in diverse ways to complete these facilities. Rachel Quarty, GBC News, Accra.
The Department of Parks and Gardens have received vehicles and other equipment from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development to enhance its operations. The gesture is also to equip the department to undertake effective landscape beautification across the country.
As established by the Local Government and the Civil Service Act, is mandated to ensure development of the horticultural potentials of the country. The department also conducts research into horticultural products, manages floricultural sections, and provides routine landscape maintenance of prestige areas. The Deputy Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, Mr. Martin A.J. Mensah-Kosa, who presented the equipment to the department, called on the public to cooperate and support the department to enable it to perform its duties effectively.
As the minister responsible for the overall performance of the sector, my responsibility is to liaise with the Office of the President to provide policy direction to enable the department to deliver on its mandate. It is in light of the above that His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana, directed that the ministry procure the following equipment to augment the existing fleet of equipment to facilitate the revitalization of the department.
The acting director of the Department of Parks and Gardens, Mr. Charles Okine, thanked the government for the support and gave the assurance that the equipment will be distributed to its offices across the country. The equipment include a tipper truck, Toyota Land Cruiser, Nissan pickup, motorbikes, mowing machines, chainsaw machines, drive mower, polytanks, and laptop computers.
It's time for business. My name is Esther Eidu Ohumeu. The World Bank has slashed its global growth forecast and cautioned that a rise in inflation, debt, and income inequality could jeopardize the recovery in emerging and developing economies.
Several nations around the world have started unwinding unprecedented levels of fiscal and monetary policy support to tackle the fallout from the coronavirus pandemic. The World Bank, in its Global Economic Prospects report, said that development will derail global recovery. The projections follow a strong rebound in global growth as demand soared after pandemic-related lockdowns lifted. The World Bank had estimated the world economy to grow 5.5% in 2021. The resurgence in COVID infections driven by the Omicron variant is disrupting economic activity in the near term and could worsen growth projections if it persists. Major economies including the United States, China, and countries in the Eurozone are expected to slow down this year. Ongoing supply chain bottlenecks, rising inflationary pressures, and elevated levels of financial vulnerability in large parts of the world could increase the risk of a sharp economic slowdown, a situation known as hard landing.
And an economist, Bismarck Osei, is on the phone line for some more analysis on the report. Bismarck.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What do you make of the latest report by the World Bank?
Okay, thank you. I think the report is a palpable reflection of how global economic growth will grow this year. And it gives us a propitious opportunity for us to invest in the pharmaceutical industry to help offset the peril of this pandemic towards expanding the economy.
And how should economies address issues such as inflationary pressures and high debt?
Thank you. I think when it comes to inflation, for instance, the global leaders should think of what are the leader strategies that needs to be impregnated to ensure that local pharmaceutical industries will have the capacity to channel their savings towards providing these vaccines domestically. Because excessive importation of these things have also have negative effect towards our international reserves. In other words, it foments at the level of international reserve that leads to high level of inflation. So there should be pragmatic steps towards equipping these pharmaceutical industries to have that synergies to produce these local drugs so that to help attenuate this excessive importation. The pharmaceutical industry is expected to grow by $70 billion in the next 7 years. What are some of the advantages for us to claim? I think this pandemic has given us opportunity to expand the industry. When it comes to the debt too, I think it's one of the pandemonium that is quite monstrous that's facing most of us. And I think inefficiency is one of the key tenets that defines economic growth and prudency. And for us to deal with this higher debt burden, there's a need for us to ensure that resource remobilized over the period is being channeled towards the economic vibrance of the economy when it comes to key sectors that will create that vibrating effect on the economy to expand, to help reduce this excessive borrowing and also expand the economy for us and ensure domestic revenue mobilization and stabilizing the economy.
And finally, zooming into Ghana, what does the report mean for the Ghanaian economy?
For Ghana, for example, I think every Ghanaian out there, it's a time for us to show renaissance towards supporting this government. This government has an agenda towards creating a sustainable entrepreneurship nation. We want to ignite the resourcefulness of these youth with the Youth Start Initiative program. And I think all of us should come to the level where we support the payment of electronic levy that will help the government to effectuate this dream. Only that the government have to bring down the electronic levy down. I think 1.75 is very high. We can start with 1% so that we can build an economy as this report have come. I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to operationalize.
Thank you so much, Bismarck, for that update on the World Bank report on the global economy. And Mrs. Angela Tremantinjimo, a well-sought-after international corporate expert, has been appointed by Microsoft as its strategic partnership lead for Africa in its new Africa Transformation Office. Currently, the youngest member on Bank of Ghana's governing board, Angela was poached from one industry giant, IBM, to her new office in Microsoft's Africa Transformation Office. Microsoft's establishment of an Africa Transformation Office, ATO, is a reinforcement of its investment in Africa to facilitate digital transformation of the continent involving Africans themselves. The office will focus on facilitating growth and promoting investment in 4 essential development areas: digital infrastructure, skills development, small and medium-scale enterprises, SMEs, and startups. Angela Tremantin-Jimo and her team had to facilitate the strategic partnership for the ATO, forming coalitions, partnerships, and negotiating market agreements with governments on the continent. The agreements are also to be extended to financial institutions, telecom networks, the United Nations, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank, and other international organizations, with the primary goal of inspiring life-changing and sustainable innovations that will impact Africa. With over 20 years of leadership experience across Africa and other continents, Angela is expected to drive strategic partnerships and alliances aimed at accelerating digital transformation. Prior to joining Microsoft, Angela was the first female and first African Executive Director and Regional Head for IBM in North, East and West Africa, where she advanced IBM's hybrid cloud and AI momentum across 35 countries on the continent. She has also worked for UBS Investment Bank and ABN AMRO in the UK. In Ghana, Angela Tremantin-Jimo was head of consumer banking for GT Bank Ghana and head of prestige banking for UBA Bank Ghana. Angela, an alumna of the Harvard Business School, currently sits on multiple boards, including the board of the Central Bank of Ghana. Let's have the interbank and commodity figures for the day.